everyone, and welcome to the Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. I'm sad to say that I'm still a bit under the weather. However, I simply couldn't keep myself away from a microphone, and I surely couldn't keep myself away from the spooky. And while you may notice I sound a little different, I assure you, the spookiness has not been compromised. Of course, I don't have to tell you all that. I'll just save my voice and let the stories do the talking. So, let's get started, shall we? I wouldn't consider myself a very spiritual person, but I have no explanation for what I encountered on my family's property, and was hoping that someone had an answer as to whether or not this was some kind of spirit or entity. My family has around 360 acres in northern Oklahoma. It's been in our family since the land rush. Growing up, the family would meet there for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but as the family expanded, it was quickly outgrown. Nowadays, I'm the only person that goes there, and I go or went there regularly to train with my firearms. I went there earlier this year, and I had an experience that shook me so badly that I haven't spoken about it until recently, and I'll never go back there alone. I arrived around 2 p.m. I set up my targets, but something felt off. I use an electric headset for hearing protection that also amplifies ambient noise, and I noticed that everything seemed to stop. No wind, no bugs, no birds, nothing. Just complete and total silence, which is very unusual for the area. I run my normal drills, and as the sun starts to set, things get stranger. Odd smells like dirty litter box and body odor. They start coming around, and I noticed that the coyotes were crossing the field west of me, almost as if they were intentionally avoiding entering the woods nearby. Then I started hearing interference coming over my headset, and what sounded like disembodied voices, speaking in an indiscernible language. Now I'm starting to worry. I start gathering my things, and I hear what sounds like a woman's blood-curdling scream coming from the woods. Around the same time, I got what I can only describe as a nauseating, omnidirectional feeling of being watched, shortly followed by very distinct footsteps trudging through the foliage in the tree line, approximately 30 yards from my position. I've been an avid hunter since childhood and familiar with noises of the woods, and the cadence of the footsteps were indicative of a large, bipedal creature, oddly human-like. I pull my phone out to take a video. I start scanning the tree line with my flashlight. Standing behind a tree, at the edge of the tree line, was a tall black silhouette with spindly limbs and a pale face, looking directly at me. I managed to capture a great still image of it from the video that I'll try to find and attach. Well, I quickly grabbed my range bag and I made a run towards my truck. I got about 50 yards from the truck and the light post on our property that's hooked up to the county power. It's never been turned off in 20 years since I've been going there. Suddenly, it cuts off. Now, I'm blindly running in the direction I believe my truck is in while I hit the unlock button to find the lights. I get in my truck, speed off, and as I'm watching in the rear view, the light post turns back on. I apologize for the long post, but I'm finally ready to get this out in the open for interpretation. I tend to think of myself as a rational person that doesn't necessarily believe in the woo kind of stuff. Although my mother described me as being sensitive and somewhat gravitated towards energies as a child, I was doing everything I could to rationalize or come up with a reasonable explanation for the things I was experiencing, but I have no explanation. The kind of fear this experience put into me is unlike any kind of fear I've ever felt. When you think of a ghost dog, some may think lost, innocent spirit, and others may think demonic. In my case, I'm not really sure how I feel about what I saw. It all began 2017. I had a friend over. We'd been playing Minecraft on PlayStation 3. We played for hours on end, having the time of our lives. Everything was going well. Until my grandpa came storming out of his room, demanding we go to sleep. My friend, being completely terrified of my grandpa, went to sleep immediately. I, on the other hand, decided to see if I could stay up all night. Note, we were sleeping on our L-shaped couch together. She was on one side and I was on the other. Hours passed. I was still lying awake with no phone, only a crappy dinosaur watch from Checkers. I couldn't tell the time even though I was 11 and everyone else in my class could. I just sort of figured that it was about 3 because the hands were on the 3. I stopped staring at the roof and I looked over to the mini lounge next to the couch. In the lounge were 2 pink velvet couches, one of which, to my disbelief, a dog appeared to be standing on top of. It wasn't a normal dog, though. It was a skeleton of a dog. Quite a big dog. It was staring forward into the mirror across the room. Its eyes were red and body emitting a black smoke. In that moment, I didn't feel any fear, more a sense of curiosity and calmness. I wasn't afraid whatsoever, and I just stared. I thought I was asleep, but I was awake, and it was really happening. I just lay there, staring at this demonic-looking dog. No sound. The objects in the surrounding area were displayed in faint colors, accompanied by fuzz and sprinkles of gray. This dog disappeared after a few blinks. In the morning, my friend had realized she'd peed the bed. She'd never done anything like that before. It could have just been a coincidence, but I don't think so. To this day, everyone has put this up to my imagination, but I know it was real. So we moved into my apartment in 2018, 2019. It didn't start immediately. It started randomly. Little things like stuff moving to different places, feeling like something was watching me. One day last year, me and my sister were watching YouTube, and it randomly changed to Hulu. The remote was on the table. We changed it back to YouTube, and it went back to Hulu again. We were spooked, so we decided to play a game. While we were playing, we heard a step in my sister's room. We were home alone. We were scared, but I got up, went to my sister's room, and I saw a shadow figure just in the corner of my eye. We were pretty spooked, but nothing happened after that besides tiny stuff. Fast forward to yesterday. I had a friend over, and we were playing Just Dance. We heard something fall in the kitchen. We went to investigate, and we saw that a lid had fallen. It didn't make sense because it was on the counter before when we were in there. Either way, we just went back to playing Just Dance. I have to be home alone today, and honestly, I don't know what to do. Just an update. My friend left and nothing really happened until 11 p.m. I saw a shadow figure in the corner of my eye again, and my dog started to bark in that direction for 15 minutes. So, I think my apartment is haunted. I just had my first sighting, and I feel like I need to tell people for any explanation possible. The first experience, I guess it's not really a sighting, but in the corner of our dining room, there's an old wooden cabinet that we have things like glasses and memories inside. One early morning, we were packing to go on holiday. We opened the cabinet for some reason, and a glass flew out at us. There were no glasses at the edge. The next one with the cabinet is where we were all having dinner a couple of weeks later. And one of the large elephant ornaments was about a foot away from falling off the top shelf. We thought it was due to someone jumping, but it was the largest and heaviest thing on there. You could see the skid marks in the dust after you lifted the elephant up, meaning something had moved it. The second is actually a sighting. It's the same house, nothing different. My parents were on holiday, and my sister was in bed, just me downstairs. I looked at my second monitor as I was playing on my PC, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a dark, tall figure walk from the cabinet to the kitchen. Me, being an idiot, told my friend, "One sec," and I ran to the kitchen. There was nothing. A week later, I told my family, and my sister responded, "Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times." And my dad said once that he was in the living room, and he saw it clear as day, walk opposite of him. And though I never gave them the description of what it looked like, my dad's description matched mine. Spooky. This happened like 15 years ago. It was school holidays, and my friend, who we'll call Sarah, and I were extremely bored and just wanted to chill. This was summertime. We lived in a small town called New Braunfels in Texas. Everything's kinda spread out. Anyway, it was around midnight and we didn't know where to go, so we just decided to go to the park. It's a little big. We were there for around an hour or so, nothing unusual, until we both saw someone or something crouched on a table. First off, a little weird someone else being in the same park at this time, but what's creepy as fuck is that this person was crouching on top of the fucking table. He wasn't even sitting on the bench. What really fucked me up, because I didn't look away, I kept looking closer, I noticed that there were wings. The body was completely human, but had fucking wings. The part that I'll never forget, all of a sudden, the most blood-curdling scream, like a woman being stabbed to death. But while sounding like a woman, it also sounded unhuman at the same time, like a scream that a normal person doesn't do, but a scream animals can't even make. Almost like those screams in a movie that a demon or something makes. Then it just stands up, and this fucker has to be about 8 feet tall, minimum. We both ran as fast as we could. Have you ever run to your lungs' max capacity? I ran until I had no air left in my lungs, and then I kept running until I had to slow down because I was coughing so much. We knocked on people's doors and kept getting threatened that they have guns and they'll shoot if we don't leave. We were literally locked outside with this thing. I kept looking into the sky because this thing reminded me of that movie, Jeepers Creepers. After about 20 minutes, the police show up and of course think that we're on drugs. But they wanted to let us go. I walked the rest of the way. I just lived a few blocks away. The police drove my friend home. There were 2 cops, a white cop and a Hispanic. When the Hispanic cop heard the story, he pretended like it was just made up. But the look on his face, it told me that he knows something about this thing, something his partner didn't know. I have PTSD now. I hate going outside alone at night, especially near parks or the woods. Weird people don't really scare cops. Animals don't really scare them. But it felt like something much worse, having a cop lie, not being able to keep a straight face because of fear. Like I said, it's a story that happened and I remember clear as day, but a story that nobody believes. This happened a few months ago. Me and my friends were messing around in a forest near our houses. We were walking through it and my friend shouted out that he saw a figure in there, pointing to a drainage tunnel. We messed around by throwing rocks at the tunnel, and then we went on. We saw there was a pathway with a dead end to the left, but there was a small space to jump to. You just had to take a right. My friend and I were talking, and we saw our other friend jump to the left, where the dead end was. But when we looked, he wasn't there. We walked the entire forest 4 times. We were talking to each other, calling out for our friend. We'd made our way back to the entrance, and we saw our friend walking toward the exit. When we caught up to him, he said that he had heard us talking and bickering, following our voices, but we were at the other end. There was another weird part. When we were walking the 3rd time, one of the bushes started shaking profusely for about 4 seconds. I don't know. Some sort of mimic or other dimensions. I moved to the U.S. for a postdoctoral fellowship in Baltimore, Maryland. This is a city where Black women regularly disappear. And recently, a serial killer named Joe Metheny was outed in Baltimore as feeding his victims at the local butcher shop he ran. This story happened to me in 2019. It's not related to Joe Metheny, who died in 2017. Compared to my home country, the weather on the U.S. East Coast is hot and muggy, so I used to dip out of the lab to take walks in a nearby park during office hours. I did this maybe 50 times, exploring the vast park and its river, its bottom piece and upper trails. It is not too secluded, and you could usually spot people jogging, which put me at ease. Nevertheless, it is Baltimore, and the crime is infamous. I had several hairy encounters in my time there. Ironically, more in Washington, D.C., which is about an hour away. Now, one day I'm sitting at the bottom of the local park in the sun. It's maybe 4 p.m., and I need to go back to work soon. Suddenly, I see a stranger in the distance. This is the first time that I've seen someone down here, as the bottom part is very secluded. But as I described above, you can spot joggers along the trails surrounding the bottom part, so it's not too isolated, in my opinion. But I immediately sense that something is very wrong. He's staring at me and not moving. And he starts talking to me, showing me a sort of map that he's holding with his right arm extended out towards me. and he asks me to come over and show him where we are on the map. I'm frozen and extremely scared. Something about the situation is very off, and I've been all over the world, but this is a first. Something about him is just wrong. I then notice something truly disturbing. In his other hand, which is elevated, he's holding a very large rock. He keeps telling me to come over and to show him something on the map. I freak out, because to get away, there's only to run around him or run backwards and deeper into the bottom of the park. I shouted, "No," and miraculously, he lowered his arm for a moment, allowing me to run past him. I ran and ran and ran until I was back to campus. I really wanted to call the cops and report this, as I know that I came very close to being another statistic in a city where people regularly disappear. Because I was technically supposed to be at work, I never reported this to anyone except my closest friend, who believes I was indeed faced with evil. In the summer of 2017, around 10 p.m., I was in the kitchen watching YouTube videos on my phone when I decided it was time to go to sleep. So I go to turn off the light to the kitchen, and as I'm walking past one of the kitchen windows that leads to the backyard, I notice someone. At first, I had this gut feeling that told me to look to my peripheral vision. And I look out the kitchen window, and I see a black figure walking across my backyard. At this point, I'm frozen with fear, and I see this thing walking across my yard with its bright, glowing eyes, and I assume it noticed me since its head is tilted in my direction, and it suddenly vanished. The figure was completely black, and its body looked like it was made out of fog, almost like a black thundercloud, and its only facial textures were these glowing white eyes. Also, its outline of its body, it had a thin spectrum of colors, similar to the colors of a soap bubble when you look into it, or the rainbow color of oil when it's dropped onto the floor. I have no idea what to even call this thing, but it was scary to experience. Does anyone else have a clue what this thing was? I've only shared this with a few people. It's one of my earliest memories. I was about 6 years old when this happened. My family was on vacation at the Edgewater Hotel in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We were in the hot tub, which was indoors. In this room or indoor area was also a swimming pool, and the hotel rooms lined up next to the pool. My parents needed to go to our hotel room for some reason, which was about a 15-second walk away, and they left me alone in the hot tub. I was the only one there in the entire indoor pool area. I was enjoying the hot tub, and I decided to walk around in it. As I was walking towards the middle of the hot tub, my feet slipped from under me, and I discovered it was much deeper than I thought, and I sank to the bottom of it. And for some reason, I couldn't gain footing. I remember panicking and flailing, trying to reach the surface, and my feet kept slipping at the bottom. I very quickly reached the point where I couldn't hold my breath any longer. This may sound crazy, but I very vividly remember breathing in water at this point, as in I inhaled water, not swallowed, but actually inhaled a half-breath worth of water. I still remember the sensation of water entering my lungs, but there was no pain. I then had the realization that I was about to die, and in that moment, I felt a hand grab mine, and it pulled me out of the water. When I looked up, there was an old man smiling at me. I looked at him in shock for several seconds, speechless, before saying, "Thank you." He continued smiling and never said a word. I then ran to the hotel where I found my parents arguing about something. I tried to tell them what had happened, but they just wouldn't let me speak. Then I ran back out to try to find the man that saved me, and I couldn't find him. I even went to the reception area and asked if they had seen an old man pass by, and no one had seen him. I realized at this point that it was an angel that saved me. How my 6-year-old brain knew this, I don't know. But I still have no doubt that it truly was an angel and not a person who saved me. Well, friends, it appears we've reached the end of tonight's episode. But don't miss a brand new episode every Friday night. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to The Darkest Hour, and tap the bell so you never miss a thing. I also upload every Sunday and Wednesday, so keep your eyes out for those as well. I sure do appreciate all the support. I can't thank you enough. I want to thank those who shared their stories, and a big thanks to all of you for listening. You can keep up with me and all things Darkest Hour over on my Instagram, The Darkest Hour YT, and follow me on Twitter, AmandaJane TDH. Do you have stories like these? I'd love to share them. Send them to me, amandadarkesthour@gmail.com, or on the Darkest Hour subreddit, The Darkest Hour YT. Huge shout out to all of my patrons who I appreciate so very much. Tracy S., Monica L., ZOEWATT, Shelly B., Donald C., Rat Girl, Alicia S., Erin G., Nikki H., Mr. Revenant, and Naz K. If you want to support The Darkest Hour in other ways, consider joining my Patreon. Check out patreon.com/thedarkesthour, or click the link in the description to learn more. Stay spooky.